you've been following along with me, you know that Google Docs is now made up of 3 different applications. We have a word processing application, one for spreadsheets, and another for presentations. Well, this is the first chapter where we actually focus in now on one of the applications, in this case, the word processing application built into Google Docs. And to explore that user interface, we need to have a word processing document open on our screens. To do that, we can open an existing one just by clicking it anywhere here in the Google Docs home, or we can create a new word processing document. So let's talk about creating a new one. When we go up to the New button here in the top left corner, at the Google Docs home, we can create new word processing documents, spreadsheets, or presentations. I'm going to choose the very first one, Document, and this will launch the word processing application in a separate window. Keep that in mind because windows can begin to pile up if you don't know that you're in a new one. For example, here on this user interface, you'll notice the Docs Home up here. If I click on the Docs Home link, I'll be returned to my Docs Home, but I won't be closing up this actual file that I've started here in the word processing application. So if I forget about it, it can pile up, but the nice thing is I can flip back to it if I need to without having to save it and close it. It'll always be open sitting here waiting for me to come back to. Let's explore this user interface. Very familiar if you've used word processing applications like Word or WordPerfect. Up here at the top in our header section, we see the name of our file, currently untitled. As I start typing though, a brand new name will be created for me based on the very first bit of text that I type. Of course, we can rename that, and we'll talk about doing that a little bit later on. You also see some information about when it was last edited. In this case, you can see June 16, 2008 on my screen, and the time, and by who. Now, as I make changes and save those changes, of course, this information changes as well, and I get what's called a revision history. We'll see that momentarily as well. Now, to the right-hand side is a Share button. Here's where I go to invite people to share my documents. Maybe they need to add input or share feedback. When I click the Share drop-down, I go here to share with others. We'll talk about that in detail later on. I could also do it the old school way. Email this document as an attachment, accessing my email application, and it's automatically attached to the email I send out to whoever I choose. Down below, you'll see Publish and View as a web page, so I can preview it first. If the intention is to create a web page out of this document, it's great to be able to preview it and then eventually publish it as a web page that can be posted on a website. So we'll talk about doing that kind of stuff later on. I've got 2 save options here. Save to update my changes, continue working on my document, or save and close, which will save my changes and close up the document so I can come back to it later from the Google Docs home. Let's go to the menu bar. I'm going to click here in an empty space just to close up that open menu. And let's talk about File, Edit, View, and all the way across to Help. Look familiar? Like most applications that have a menu bar, these are menu headings, and clicking on them displays the contents of the pull-down menu. When I click File, for example, I'm going to see file-related commands. Here's where I go to create another new document. Notice that I can also create other types of documents right from here in the word processing application. I can create a new spreadsheet document or a new presentation right from here. It's kind of cool. It will obviously open up those applications to allow me to do that. Also, we've got some other file commands here like saving. We've got renaming. The revision history is available to us right from here on the File menu. I can delete files. Download files as different formats. We'll be doing this later too. There's PDF, Word, HTML, rich text format, text, and open office formats. Here's where I go to print if I want to access print settings first, or go directly to the print dialog. You can see that I've got those here on this menu as well. I can print them as a web page and view as a web page from here too. Notice too that we've got some shortcuts. Now, we need to be careful about these. For example, Control P is a shortcut to open up the print dialog box. I know it's going to be a dialog box because of the little dots I see here, the ellipses after print. That represents another little window will open up where I'll have some print options. Control P is a keyboard shortcut if you're on a Windows PC. Now, if you've used a Mac and you've never used a PC, there is a control key, a booster key that's labeled Control right on the Mac keyboard, but the equivalent is the Command key. So for me here on the Mac, Command P is going to display the print dialog box. Let's test this out. I'll just click in an empty space. We haven't typed anything yet, but if we wanted to print this, if you're on a Windows PC, try Control P. I'm on a Mac. I'm going to do a Command P. Holding down Command, tap the P, and look at that. It opens up my little sheet here for choosing a printer, presets. Of course, here's where I go to actually print. I can preview from here as well. I'm going to click cancel. There's nothing to print at this time. So Mac users, just keep that in mind. Wherever you see control, it's really command. We've got some other menus like edit with editing commands, undo, redo, cut, copy, paste, find and replace. We'll look at those later. Under View, this is important. Currently, you can see a check mark here for me next to Normal Plain View. You may have noticed down below here I've got a flashing cursor in this great big white space. Typically in a word processing application, you'll get an idea where the edge of the paper is, your margins, and so on. To get that same feel, here in Google Docs, you need to choose Fixed Width Page View, which I personally prefer. I'm going to click on it now to switch to that view, and now I get the borders, the outline of where my sheet of paper is. There's my flashing cursor, so I can see I actually do have some margins here. And now I'm ready to start typing and have a better idea for the layout of the finished product when I'm done. So if you prefer this view as well, remember from the View menu, Fixed Width Page View. Under Insert, all kinds of things we can insert into a document here. Pictures, links, tables, comments, special characters, those not found on the keyboard. We'll do that later. Horizontal lines, a great way to separate text. In that previous view, page breaks for printing come in handy, so you know exactly where you want to break the page off and start printing on the next page. Headers and footers appear here under the Insert menu as well as bookmarks. There's some formatting commands here. We can clear any formatting we've applied. Some of the formatting might be paragraph formatting like normal, minor heading, subheading, and heading options. These are predefined formats that you can apply quickly and easily. Of course, you can do any formatting you want using some of the other format options, including strikeouts, super and subscript, block quotes. There's some alignment options for left, center, right, and justified. We'll get into these later as well. Under Table, we've got a whole table menu. We'll be doing a lot of table work, inserting tables, modifying rows, columns, cells. And then we've got Tools. Here is where we find our check spelling command. Languages, we can count the number of words in our document, manage those bookmarks. There's revision history here as well. And under Help, we've got some help options. Of course, using Google Docs, you're online, so you've got access to the Google Docs Help Center. You can learn from other Google users online, watch videos, and get your keyboard shortcuts right from here as well. I'm going to click down here in my page. Just below the menu bar, we've got our toolbar, and these are little buttons representing commands we've already seen somewhere up in the menus. For example, we've got a Save button. There's a Print button, Undo and Redo. Here's some formatting options for formatting the font, the size, and the appearance. Check it out here. We can insert a link. We know from the Insert menu, but we can do it right from here as well. Here's Numbered and Bulleted Lists. We've got Indenting. There's some alignment buttons here as well. Check it out, Clear or Remove Formatting, and there's our spell checking button right there. So these are some of the commands you probably use more often than others, and that's why they appear on the toolbar. We've got a scroll bar over here on the right-hand side. We can scroll down through our documents as we create multiple pages, for example. There's the bottom of the page when I scroll all the way down to the bottom. And I'll scroll all the way back up to the top. Now we're ready to start creating our document. So we'll leave this open. In the next lesson, we start by entering text. If you were following along in the previous lesson, from the Google Docs home, we selected the New button, chose Document, which took us to the word processing application you see here with a new blank document, untitled, ready for us to start typing. In this lesson, we're going to enter some text and talk about some basic techniques when doing so. First of all, you'll notice in the top left corner that our new document is untitled. We can rename it to whatever we want just by clicking up here, or as we start to type text, we'll see it get renamed for us, at which point we may wish to rename it anyway. Also, you'll notice some formatting options that appear on the formatting toolbar. The default font, in this case for Dana. The default font size set to 10 points. Then we've got some other options for formatting, bold, italic, underlines, none of which seem to be selected at this point. They're available to us but not selected. And then we've got the font color, defaulted to black, the background, white, and alignment, which is selected over here, is the left align button. We could also go center or right align. We'll talk about formatting your text later on, but before you start typing text here at your insertion point, which is flashing away here in the top left corner, you could do some formatting ahead of time. For example, maybe you know this is going to be a title and you want to change the size. I'm going to change the size up to 18 points. Now typically it's better to enter your text first and then do the formatting after the fact, because things can look a little bit crazy or kooky when you're doing it. I prefer to get my text in there, then format it so I got an idea what the entire document's going to look like as I format it. But it's totally up to you. So we'll make one simple change. We'll change our font size to 18 points and we'll type in our title. This is an insertion point here flashing away is very important, especially once we get some text on our page. If we need to go back and insert some elsewhere or maybe take out some text, the insertion point is important. So let's talk about some basic techniques when it comes to entering text. If you're brand new to word processing, this may come in handy. where I'm going to start typing my title. I'm going to type in User Conference 2008. And you can see that that size is actually much larger than what I might be used to when I'm typing in a word processing application because we did change the size to 18 points. I'm going to hit Enter or Return on the keyboard. Return on the Mac keyboard, the Enter key, knocks you down to the next line. I'm going to hit Enter one more time to go down to the next line. So I'm leaving a blank line in between. The space that's being created here between these two lines is equivalent to the size of the font I've selected, 18 points. So I'm going to change the font size back now to a more respectable 12 points, which would be standard in most word processing applications. And I'm going to start typing in my agenda. I'm going to start with day 1. And I'm going to hit Return a couple of times to leave a blank line. Now the blank line in between day 1 and where I'm ready to type is actually only 12 points as opposed to 18. And I'm going to type in just a few items here so we have some text to work with. So if you want to follow along, let's start with introductions. We'll hit Return or Enter, type in icebreaker. Then we'll type in keynote speaker. Hitting Enter or Return, we'll have a break. And then we'll have guest speaker number 1. And I'm going to hit Return right there. Okay, some things have happened. First of all, in the top left corner, you can see that the new name of this document is User Conference 2008. I can keep it at that. It's been saved. It's available to me now, even though I haven't actually clicked on the Save button or Save and Close at this point. It's constantly being updated. That's one of the nice things about Google Docs. So if for some reason everything shut down, I'd probably be able to get back to this exact location in my document the next time I turn on my computer and access this particular document, now named User Conference 2008. We'll talk about renaming a little bit later on. Now my insertion point is down here flashing away below guest speaker number 1. But if I wanted to add something, maybe after the break, but before guest speaker 1, I just have to click up there after break. Now I've got my insertion point flashing away after break. And when I hit Enter or Return, you can see guest speaker moves down so I can type in another little item here. So I'm going to type in exercise, and that'll be exercise number 1. So inserting, no problem. You just click where you see the insertion point is where you're about to start entering new text or line breaks, whatever it is. What if you want to take out something? Well, in that case, the insertion point is very important. I'm going to click here between ice and breaker right after the dash. So you see my insertion point. So if I wanted to take out the dash, I would use my backspace key, which is up under the function keys there in the top right corner under function key 12. When I hit my backspace key on the Mac keyboard labeled delete, it actually takes out characters to the left. So if I hit it 3 more times, I'm going to take out all of ice and the dash. Now, if I hit my delete key, which is just above my arrow keys over there, between the numeric keypad and my regular keys on the keyboard, that takes out characters to the right. So as I tap it, you can see icebreakers coming out. Now I've got a blank line. If I hit my delete key one more time, I'm going to take out the blank line, and everything closes up nicely. So some very basic techniques for entering text, and of course, working with that text to add new or remove existing text. The insertion point, very important. If I'm ready to continue with my list, I can cursor down using the arrow keys or just click down here below guest speaker and start typing. So very simple, adding text. It's automatically updated. Of course, there's a whole lot more we can do here when working with text, so stay tuned. At some point as you're entering text into a word processing document here in Google Docs, you may need to insert a character that does not appear on the keyboard. Think about copyright symbols or the cent symbol, or maybe you're typing in a word that might appear in another language and uses accents. Well, those are called special characters, and in this lesson I'm going to show you how to insert a special character as you work away here in Google Docs. In the previous lesson, we started this document here, our User Conference 2008, and started typing in our agenda. So if you're skipping to this lesson, you might want to pause for a second if you want to follow along word for word and enter this into a new blank document here in the word processing application. Otherwise, you really don't need to have what we have here on the screen as long as you're ready to start entering text. So let's say, first of all, User Conference 2008, we want to copyright that. I'm going to click right after 2008, and I want to insert the copyright symbol. Keyword is insert because if we go to the insert menu and give it a click, you'll notice that special characters appears right here. So I'm going to give that a click. And by default, I'm going to see special characters listed here on my screen. All I have to do is click on one to insert it, which will do that, and close up this window. I also have Asian characters available to me. You may or may not see some at this point. And then there's advanced. In this case, if you know the exact Unicode value of the character you're looking for, you would just enter it here in the Unicode field. You get a little preview and choose the Insert Character button. But I'm going to go back to Special Characters. We'll keep this simple. There's the copyright symbol right at the top. When I click on it, it's inserted here right after User Conference 2008. Notice it has the same font attributes, so it's the same size. It's a little bit too big. Typically, we would want that maybe to be smaller and up higher, something known as superscript. So when it comes to formatting text later on, this is something we'll do. Down below, let's say the keynote speaker, we want to type in the name of the person. We figured out who it's going to be. So I'm going to leave a space, put in a round bracket here. I'm going to type in Andre Spratt and a closing round bracket. Now, Andre really should have an E with a French accent, known as the accent aigu. So I'm going to take out the E by clicking here between the R and the E, hit my delete key just above my cursor keys, and now I want to insert that E with the accent. So again, I go up to the Insert menu, come down to Special Characters, and now I'm looking for the French character, which is the E with the accent going from the bottom to the top to the right. So as I come down here, I can see I've got a whole bunch of characters. There's some E's right there, and it's not this one pointing back, it's this one pointing forward that I want. So I click on it. It gets inserted, and you can see the size might need to be bumped up a little bit because with the accent, it's now equivalent to the size of the R, but really the E should be a little bit bigger with the accent a little bit higher than the R. So we have a little bit of formatting to do when we start working with special characters. Let's just take a peek at some of the other ones in there. I'm going to go up to Insert and back down to Special Characters here. You'll notice that I've got the uppercase equivalents of some of these. So there's my small e with the accent. If I go a little bit further down, I'm going to see the capital E's down here. Some of them with accents, some of them different languages altogether. Down below, you can see all kinds of cool characters that would be used in different languages. Then we've got some that are just English characters, like 3/4, a half, and a quarter. They appear here. I've got the degree symbol, so if you're putting in degrees, that's a handy one. There's some numbers that are actually superscripted, a little bit smaller and higher. There's a registered trademark. There's some lines. If I want to draw lines and connect them, I can do that. A little bit difficult. Pounds. There's the cent symbol right there. Lots to choose from. If we don't actually want to insert a special character, we don't see the character we're looking for, well, we just click the close button here in the top right corner to return to our document. So I'm going to leave the text just the way you see it. When we come to formatting text, we'll talk about superscript and changing font sizes. But again, we'll save that for later on. At least now you know how to access those special characters. One of the things Google Docs is very good at is saving or updating your work for you. That's why there's a revision history that we're going to be talking about later on. But you still need to know how to save your own work. First of all, to save it to a specific location if you wanted to, or to save a copy. You might even want to change the name. So in this lesson, we're going to talk about saving your work, even though Google Docs will update periodically any changes you make to your own document. For example, here's a document that we started in a previous lesson, our User Conference 2008. As soon as I started to type in the title and went down to the next line, it suddenly became named User Conference 2008. I didn't have to do anything about that. And that change was of course saved, even though I didn't hit any save command. If I go up to the window menu here in my browser and go down to the Google Docs home, I just want you to see that User Conference 2008 appears here even though I personally did not save it. It was saved for me. I'm going to go back to the previous window, back up to the window menu and to User Conference 2008, where I continue to work on my document. Now, I'd like you, if you're following along, to go up to the File menu here, down to New, and let's create a new document. So the new document window appears. We've got nothing there. It's untitled, and you can see when it was edited. For me, it's today at this time. You'll see your own date and time up there, and your own name as the person doing the editing. Now let's just type in our names and hit Enter or Return on your keyboard. I'm going to hit Enter one more time to leave a blank line, and that periodic update that appears up here in the header section will eventually rename my document to David Rivers. But notice it hasn't happened quite yet. If I wanted to save my changes, I can come up to the Save button right up here on the right-hand side. I could go to the Save button right here on my toolbar. I could go up to the File menu, choose Save from there, or if I prefer to use the keyboard, Control-S on a PC keyboard, Command-S on a Mac keyboard, and here's where I could go to save it as a new copy. But you may have noticed something happened while we were looking at those menus and buttons. It just got renamed David Rivers. It was automatically updated for me, and it's starting to create that revision history we're going to look at later on. So yes, saves are done automatically for you, but they're done periodically. So for example, if I added some additional information here, I'm going to type in my title and hit enter. And if I was to close this up without saving it, I might lose those changes. So that's where the save button, command or control S on your keyboard, or clicking the save button here will update those changes. You see saving appear up here in the header section, and you know it's safe to close. You can also save and close on the fly by clicking the save and close button. I'm going to do that, which saves my changes, and it closes it up to return me to my User Conference 2008 document. Now, if I want to close that up and save changes as well, I can click the same button. Eventually, all the windows will close up and I'll return to my Google Docs home. So there's User Conference 2008 right up there. What you don't see is the one I just created called David Rivers, but it hasn't been refreshed at this point. So as you know, you can refresh your screen to see the latest additions to your Google Docs home if you wanted to. I'm going to click my reload button up here in Safari. You may have a refresh button. And as soon as I do that, things get refreshed. There it is. There's my name right there, the name of the document. You can see what folder or who's sharing it. In this case, it's not in a folder, and it's just owned by me. I'm the only one looking at it. And there's the date over there that it was last saved or updated. So that's saving in a nutshell. It's always nice to know that if for some reason you forgot to save, odds are pretty good that you still have everything. Google Docs does a good job of updating for you, and later on when we start talking about revisions, you'll see how important that is. Over time, as you continue to create your own documents here in Google Docs, the need to go back to those documents at some point or another will likely arise. Maybe it's to update information, continue building the document, maybe it's to share it or print it. Whatever the reason, we need to talk about opening existing documents, and we'll also review uploading documents. That's what we'll do first here from the Google Docs homepage. So if you're not at the Google Docs home, go there now. And if you've got the exercise files, you can follow along with me. If you don't, no problem. Maybe you can locate one of your own documents to upload. This is a review, something we've already done at the beginning of this title. But here from the Google Docs home, you'll see the upload button. We give it a click. Now all we have to do is locate the file. I'm going to click Choose File and navigate to my exercise files folder. You can do that if you've got them, because there's where you'll find userconference.rtf, rich text format. We'll give that a click, and to actually choose this, we click the Choose button down below in the bottom right corner. Now that simply selects the file. It appears here next to the Choose File button. To upload it, we click the Upload File button, which both uploads it to Google Docs, but also opens it up here in our word processing application. Notice the name in the top left corner, User Conference. When it was edited, that's right now for me, this date and this time by me. You'll see your own date and time and your own name up there. And then down below you can see we've got our information, our insertion point flashing at the top, ready to start adding or making changes. So let's just do that. I'm going to scroll down here underneath day 2 and click. There's a blank line between day 2 and my flashing insertion point. And I'm just going to type in review of day 1. Don't worry about formatting for now. We'll get back to that later. So I've made a change. I want to save that change and close it up. Maybe I'm done for now. I'll need to come back to it later. I go up to the Save and Close button at the top right corner. I give that a click. Saves my changes, closes it up, and check it out. User Conference appears now at the top of my list because things are sorted by date. As you can see here from the date column, that little arrow. Of course, if I want to just see my word processing documents, I come down here to Documents. And you can see I've got a whole bunch in here, including the one that I just uploaded and updated. I'm going to go back to All Items. And what happens now if I want to go back to that User Conference and maybe add some more information to it? That's the easy part. We click on it here at the Google Docs home. So we find it first of all on the list. And if your list is huge, remember we've got folders and we've got filters down here. But I'm going to click on User Conference here at the top of my list, which opens it up, and now I continue working on it. Again, I would save my changes and close when I'm done using this button in the top right corner. However, some people who are used to using word processing applications like Word or WordPerfect, even WordPad and Notepad, are used to going to the File menu to open another document. But if we go up to the File menu here inside the word processing application, we do not find the Open command. It's done from the Google Docs home. So here's where we do our work on our document. To open, we always go back to the Google Docs home. So I can do that by clicking Docs Home. That would leave this open, or I could go to Save and Close, which saves my changes, closes it up, and takes me back to the Google Docs home. Now I'm ready to actually open an existing file just by simply clicking it here on the list. So very simple process, done a little bit differently than you may be used to working with other word processors, but that is how we upload and open existing documents. We're going to continue on now working with our word processing documents. We're going to look at cutting, copying, and pasting in the next lesson. One of the greatest time savers in any computer application is the ability to cut, copy, and paste contents. This can save you so much time as you never want to have to retype anything. So if things need to be moved around, or you need duplicates of content somewhere else in a document or in another application for that matter, using cut, copy, and paste can be very handy. So that's what we're going to talk about in this lesson, and we're going to use the document we uploaded in the previous lesson, this one here called User Conference. You see it here in my Google Docs home. If you've got the exercise files and you're skipping to this lesson, just use your upload button to locate the userconference.rtf file in the exercise files folder. And when you upload it, it will actually open up in the word processing application. For me, I've already got it, so I'm going to click on it here in my Google Docs home. That opens it up, and there's the document as I left it last. Let's say we wanted to rearrange some of the items in our agenda. That's where cutting and pasting comes in handy. We remove it from one location and paste it in another. So down here under day 1, under lunch, notice guest speaker number 2 comes before exercise number 2. But up here in day 1, exercise number 1 seems to come before guest speaker number 1. That's the wrong order. So what I really want to do is remove guest speaker number 1 and pop it up here between the break and exercise number 1. So all I have to do is select the text that I want to remove by clicking and dragging across it. You can see that will select the text. I can go way out here and just the text on that line is selected. But if I also want the return, that line break, well, then I would just click and drag from the beginning of the G in guest and go straight down to the next line, which happens to be blank. And when I let go, notice guest speaker number 1 is selected, but so is all of this. That means that when I remove this and paste it up here, exercise number 1 will go down below it where it belongs. Watch this. We go up to the edit menu, and here's where we find cut, copy, and paste. Notice the keyboard shortcuts, Control X, Control C, and Control V. Now some browsers aren't going to let you paste using these commands. You may also notice in your browser you've got, under the edit menu, cut, copy, and paste here as well. And they are the same shortcuts. On the Mac, it's Command X, Command C, and Command V. On the PC, Control X, Control C, and Control V. So I'm just going to click out here, and from this edit menu, I am going to cut. Control X would also do the job. Removes it. Gone. Where? It's in memory. Now watch this. When I click in front of exercise number 1 and I go to paste it right here, I'm going to see that text that I cut plus the return, which means exercise number 1 should appear below what I'm about to paste. Now if I go up to this edit menu here, let's see what happens with Safari. If I come up here and choose paste, I get a message saying that my browser doesn't allow access to my computer's clipboard. Just a safety or security feature. Instead, I can use copy, cut, and paste from the edit menu above in my browser that I was showing you. So I click OK here. I also know the shortcut for me on the Mac is Command V, Control V if you're on a PC keyboard. Let's try that. Sure enough, there it is. Guest speaker shows up where it belongs. Exercise number 1 goes down below it. That is cutting and pasting when you want to change something's position, in this case text. Now we can also use copy and paste when we want duplicates of something. Down here for day 2, you can see it doesn't really look right. The formatting is off. I've typed in review of day 1 down here, but it might be easier if I just duplicate all of day 1 and type over whatever I need to change. So in that case, I'm going to click and drag from the beginning of day 1 down to the blank line below closing remarks, just to make sure I get this entire section. Now I'm going to copy. I could do a Control C or Command C. I could go up to the edit menu and choose copy from here. There's Control C, shortcut on the PC. That copies it. Now if I come down here and highlight day 2 plus the text I no longer need, I'm going to replace that with what I'm about to paste using Control V or Command V. Check it out. Now all I have to do is make a few changes. Click here after day 1, backspace, and type in a 2. Instead of introductions, I can double click on introductions and type review of day 1. keynote speaker might be speaking on day 2 after the review. Sure enough, I'm going to leave it there. Then there's a break. See the stuff that I don't have to retype or re-enter. Now it's guest speaker number 3. So all I have to do is take out the 1 and put in a 3. And exercise number 3. Delete that. There we go. I think you've got the idea. So that's cutting, copying, and pasting. Of course, that will work with objects as well. If you've got photographs, for example, you can cut and copy and paste those objects. Tables, we'll be working with tables later on and show you some cutting and copying and pasting to save time there as well. So with all of these changes, we should save before we close this up. I'm going to choose Save and Close to do both at the same time. Save my changes. Takes me back to my Google Docs home, and that's cutting, copying, and pasting in Google Docs. In this lesson, we're going to explore printing a document here in Google Docs, something that's very straightforward, but there are a couple of points I need you to remember. So we're going to open up an existing document. If you've been following along earlier, we uploaded user conference from the exercise files. Now, if you're skipping to this lesson and you've got the exercise files, you can go ahead and upload this now by clicking the upload button. Locate user conference in the exercise files, and it will be uploaded and opened simultaneously. If you don't have the exercise files and you want to follow along, you could create a new document. All we need is a little bit of text in there. Or if you've got user conference already uploaded, just give it a click here in the Google Docs home, which will open it up. We've got some text, a little bit of formatting, and now we're ready to print. All right, the important point I need you to remember is when you've got the document on your screen here in the word processing application, you do not want to go up to the File menu in your browser and select Print from there. For me, here in Safari, it appears at the bottom of the menu. In Internet Explorer, you'll see Print somewhere here in the menu as well. The keyboard shortcut, for me, Command-P, Control-P on the Windows PC, will use your browser's print function, which we do not want to do. We want to make sure that we print from within Google Docs here in our word processing application. So on the toolbar, you will find a Printer button. We can also go up to the File menu here on the menu bar inside Google Docs and choose Print from there. You'll notice that the print option has an ellipses after it. In other words, it's going to open up a dialog box for us. If I go up to print settings right here, I can access some print settings for the document. For example, here you can see portrait is the orientation. I can choose paper size from 8.5 by 11 to legal to A4. I'm going to leave it 8.5 by 11. I can choose page numbering. I can choose no page numbering or choose a location. I've selected bottom center here. I've also changed my margins from 1 inch all the way around to 3/4 of an inch just by selecting it from the drop down. If you want to do the same, you can. And if you want to print right from here, you can as well by clicking this print button. But I'm just going to click OK to save my print settings. I'm going to go back to the File menu and choose Print from here. And what this is going to do is actually start to create a PDF document. If you're in a Windows PC and you've got Adobe Reader installed, that's probably what just launched for you. I'm on a Mac, so I'm still in my browser, but really what I'm looking at is a PDF version of my document. As I hover down across the bottom here, I get some options, and that's because I am on the Mac, so I can zoom out and zoom in if I wanted to. I've got 2 other options on the right-hand side to open this PDF in the program that's used for previewing PDFs, called Preview on the Mac, or I can save this PDF to a download folder, in other words, locally on my computer if I wanted to. But really all I want to do is print. So now that I've got the PDF on my screen, and if you're an Adobe Reader, you can use that print functionality. So for me, it does mean going up to the File menu now and choosing Print, which will send this to my printer. My default printer shows up here, and I've got some print options if I wanted to and presets. Really, all we're going to do is choose the Print button when we're ready to print, and off it goes to my printer. Now, I don't need to save this PDF or download it, so I'm just going to close this window by clicking my Close button. You can close up Adobe Reader if you're done printing your document on the PC, and you return to the word processing application here in Google Docs. When you're done with the document itself, you can choose to save and close. If you've changed any of the settings, they get saved along with your document, and you return back to the Google Docs home. So printing is fairly straightforward. You just need to remember not to use your browser's print command at the very beginning, because when you open up a document and you go up to your browser's file menu and choose print, you're going to print the document, plus your menus and buttons all around the outside. You're printing your screen, basically, that's being viewed inside the browser. So keep that in mind. Go to the Print button or the Print command on the File menu within your document in the word processor, and then proceed to print your PDF. So that covers printing. In the next lesson, we're going to talk about checking your spelling. Again, a little bit different whether you're on a Mac or a PC, and we'll talk about those differences coming right up. Nobody likes to read a document and come across spelling errors, so it's good to know that here in Google Docs, when you create a new word processing document, you've got spell checking functionality built right in. So we're going to look at the spell checking functionality here in Google Docs. Keep in mind that I'm on a Macintosh computer. The Mac applications share a dictionary of their own, so don't be confused if you're on a Windows PC and you start to see things on my screen that you don't see on yours. I'll explain those as we come across them. First thing we need to do though is let's create a new document. I'm going to go up to the new button and select document right there. Creates a new document, and we're going to start typing in some words, and we'll make some spelling errors, some not so wrong, but definitely considered errors according to the spell checking functionality. For example, proper names. I'm going to type in a fictional company name right here. I'm going to type in Simple Text Inc. And when I hit return or enter a couple of times, I leave a blank line. You'll notice here on the Mac, I've got red dotted underlines appearing under both these words. If you're on a Windows PC, they might seem fine to you. Well, we're not actually going to use the Macintosh built-in spell checking functionality. We're going to use the Google Docs functionality. You'll notice that if I go up to a word that has a red dotted underline here on the Mac and right-click on it, I get a pop-up menu that allows me to select replacements, ignore the spelling error, learn by adding it to the dictionary. I can use Spotlight in Google, look it up in the dictionary, and then I've got some spelling and grammar functions down here as well. If you're on a PC and you right-click on the word, probably not much happening except for maybe cut and copy or paste, for example. So instead of using my built-in dictionary here in the Mac, I'm going to use Google Docs because when I go to any computer, anywhere around the world connected to the internet, I want to be able to access the document and know that the spelling is correct no matter where I am. Here I go. Up to the top right corner, you'll notice we've got a spell checking button right here on the toolbar, very last button. But before we do that, let's go to the Tools menu. Here you'll see check spelling, the exact same thing right at the top of the menu. We also have some options down below though. For example, I can choose my language before I start checking the spelling and it will use that language. Auto is likely selected for you by default. But let's say you know it's English and it's a specific type of English. We've got US or UK type English. I'm going to choose English US. Lots of other languages in there as well. If you're creating documents using any of those languages, remember to switch over to that before you check spelling. Now I'm going to check the spelling. I could go back to the Tools menu right here at the top, or simply go to the Check Spelling button right here on the toolbar. So I'm going to give it a click. It appears as though it's selected or pressed in now. And right away, the word Simple Text, which is my company name, is now highlighted in yellow. It's not using the red dotted underline we're used to seeing. I don't need to right-click on it. Just a regular click on a highlighted word when you're checking spelling will give you some options. In this case, 2 replacement options, or because this is a proper name, I might want to add it to the dictionary. Now it's being added to my Google Docs dictionary, not my Mac dictionary in this case. That's what I want. So I'm going to click Add to Dictionary, and it's no longer highlighted. If I wanted to continue checking spelling, when I go up to the Tools menu, check it out. I can recheck spelling now. Even though I know there are no further errors, clicking Recheck Spelling shows no highlighted words. So I'm ready to continue. So let's come down here and start typing. I just click below Simple Text, and I'm going to type in, if you received, and I'm going to misspell received. I'm going to ignore that I before E except after C rule. And hit enter a couple of times. In this case, because I'm on a Mac, I know that there's a spelling error. It's highlighted for me. But if I want to recheck spelling at this point, I can go up to Tools, down to Recheck Spelling. Spelling button is still pressed in, so that's why Recheck Spelling appears there. And there's the word received. So in this case, when I click on it, I see a number of possible replacement options. Or I could add this word to the dictionary as well, which I don't want to do because it is misspelled. It should be this one here at the top. So when I click on it, you can see it's fixed up for me. And there are no other highlighted words. So I continue creating my document, rechecking spelling along the way. When I'm done, I can either click this button to turn the spelling off or go up to Tools and choose Done Spelling from here. And that's it. So it's good to know that the check spelling functionality is built right into Google Docs. That means that customizing your dictionary over time as you add words, and it's the same dictionary you'll be accessing no matter what computer you're on as long as you're connected to the internet. Does this mean we don't need to proofread our documents anymore? Not really. You may be using correctly spelled words, but they may be the wrong words. There's 3 different ways to spell the word to, for example, or there. So keep in mind you still need to proofread your documents before you share them or print them or send them out to other people. But the spell checking functionality will find those typos and spelling errors that maybe you might miss when you are proofreading.